Some wounds never show up on the surface, but they change the way we breathe, the way we pray, the way we carry ourselves through the day. And the truth is, some of the deepest recoveries happen long before anyone else knows we're hurting. We talk a lot about recovery when it's visible, when there's a diagnosis, a crisis, a moment that everyone can point to. But most people are healing from things they've never said out loud. The invisible wounds, quiet battles, silent recoveries that go unnoticed and unsupported. Today I want to open a gentle space for those hidden recoveries, to name them, honor them, and remind you that God is already healing the wounds you haven't found the words for yet. I want to thank you for joining me on Faith Between the Lines, and I'm Scott. There are wounds that people talk about openly, and then there are the ones they carry in silence. The invisible ones. The ones that don't leave a mark on the skin, but leave imprints on the soul. The ones that don't come with sympathy cards or casseroles or long comforting phone calls. These are the wounds that live beneath the surface in the tired eyes of someone who keeps showing up, in the quiet sign of someone who's been strong for too long, in the forced smile of someone who doesn't want to burden anyone. And the truth is, many people don't even realize that they're recovering from something. They just think they're tired, or overwhelmed, or not themselves lately. They think you should be able to just push through it, shake it off, or just get over it. But deep down, their spirit is trying to heal from something they haven't named yet. Maybe it's years of being the dependable one, with no room to fall apart. Maybe it's the slow erosion of self-worth from a relationship that dimmed their light. Maybe it's the exhaustion of caregiving that stretched their soul thin. Maybe it's the quiet ache of spiritual distance from the God that they once felt close to. Maybe it's the weight of unspoken grief for a life that didn't unfold the way they had hoped. These are the invisible recoveries, the ones that deserve just as much compassion as the wounds the world can see. And maybe as you listen, you recognize yourself in this. Maybe you realize that your own recovery didn't begin with a dramatic moment, but with a quiet truth. Something inside you just needed healing, even if you didn't have the words for it yet. And God saw it long before you did. And then you start to realize that there are quiet signs that healing has already begun. Most people don't recognize the moment their recovery starts. It doesn't begin with a breakthrough or a dramatic turning point or a sudden burst of clarity. It begins quietly. It begins in the small shifts, the subtle ones, the ones that you might miss if you weren't paying attention. It begins when you say, "I'm tired," and actually mean it. It begins when you pause long enough to notice your own needs. It begins when you stop pretending you're fine. It begins when you feel the weight of something you've been carrying for years and whisper, "This is heavy." It begins when you let yourself rest without guilt. When you let yourself cry without an apology. When you let yourself hope without shutting it down. These are not weaknesses. These are signs of healing. These are the moments when your spirit starts to breathe again. And God is often the first one to notice these shifts long before you do. He sees the way your shoulders soften when you finally let go of something you were never meant to carry alone. He sees the way that you open your heart even a fraction of an inch after being closed for so long. He sees the way you reach for him in the small, quiet ways, the ones that no one else can see in the world except for you. Recovery doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion finally catching up with you. Sometimes it looks like admitting you can't keep going the way that you've been. Sometimes it looks like breaking down because you've held everything in for far too long. But even in these moments, especially these moments, they are sacred. These are the first cracks when God's light begins to seep in. And maybe as you listen, you realize that you, on your own recovery, doesn't start with strength. It started with honesty, with surrender, with the smallest whisper of truth that your heart could manage. And God met you there with a gentleness you didn't even know you needed. And that's how God heals the wounds that we don't have a name for. Some wounds are easy to describe. Others live so deep inside of us that we don't have a language for them yet. And those are the wounds that God begins to heal first. He heals the places we hide. He heals the places we avoid. He heals the places we've learned to numb because feeling them felt too overwhelming. He heals the exhaustion we've carried for years without ever calling it exhaustion. He heals the loneliness we've learned to live with as if it were normal. He heals the fear we've disguised as responsibility, as strength, as just doing what needs to be done. God sees the wounds we've never spoken aloud. He sees the burdens we've admitted we're carrying. He sees the memories we've had tucked away because we didn't know how to face them. And he doesn't wait for us to find the perfect words before he begins his work. He starts healing in the quiet places, in the unseen places, and the places we don't even realize we're hurting. Sometimes his healing looks like rest that finally reaches the part of us that has been tired for years. And sometimes it looks like a moment of clarity that arrived out of nowhere and softened something inside us. Sometimes it looks like a wave of emotion we didn't expect but desperately needed to feel. And sometimes his healing looks like nothing at all, not at first. It looks like stillness. It looks like emptiness. It looks like waiting. But beneath the surface, God is stitching together what life has torn apart. He is restoring what was lost long before we knew how to ask for help. He is tending to the wounds that we didn't know we had. Invisible recoveries are often the most sacred ones because they remind us that God's love reaches deeper than our self of understanding, our awareness, our ability to explain. He heals us even when we don't know that we're being healed. And then you realize when invisible healing slowly becomes visible. There comes a moment in every recovery when what was hidden begins to rise to the surface. Not all at once, not dramatically, not in a way that overwhelms you, but slowly, gently, in God's timing, not yours. Invisible healing becomes visible in the way that you breathe a little bit deeper than you did last month, in the way that you speak to yourself with a softness you never used before, in the way that you pause instead of pushing yourself past your limits. It becomes visible when you stop apologizing for needing rest, when you stop pretending you're okay just to make others comfortable, when you stop carrying burdens that were never yours to hold. It becomes visible when you start noticing your own heart again and ways it aches, the ways it hopes, the way it reaches for God, even when you feel unsure. God never forces healing into the light. He reveals it. He reveals it in ways that reveals the world slowly, softly, with a tenderness that protects your spirit. He brings clarity only when it's ready to see it. He brings release only when your hands can finally let go. He brings strength only when your heart has the space to hold it. And maybe you felt this happening without realizing it was. Maybe you've noticed that you didn't break as easy as you used to. Maybe you've noticed that you're not as numb as you once were. Maybe you've noticed that something inside you is beginning to rise again. That is what invisible recovery looks like when it steps into the light. Not perfection, not certainty, not a sudden transformation, just a quiet, steady unfolding of the healing God has been doing in the places no one else could see. In reflection of this episode, I wrote a poem for it. It's called He Heals What No One Sees. There are wounds we never mention. There are aches we never name. There are battles fought in silence that still burn with quiet flame. There are tears we never speak of. There are fears we tuck away. Yet God sees every shadowed place we carry day by day. He heals the hidden heartache, the exhaustion in our bones, the weight we hold in secret when we think we're all alone. He mends the quiet fractures that we barely recognize, the ones that shape our breathing and the light behind our eyes. He lifts the weary spirit that has forgotten how to rise and whispers strength into the soul that only He can realize. For every unseen struggle, every burden pressed within, He works in holy silence where true healing can begin. So if your pain feels nameless or your sorrow has no sound, just know that God is tending it in the ways deep, both, and profound. Invisible recoveries are precious in His sight, for He restores the hidden wounds that bring them back to light. My closing blessing for the show is may God meet you in the places you've never spoken aloud, the places you carry quietly, the places that ache without a name. May He tend the wounds that you've hidden even from yourself. And may His healing reach the deepest corners of your spirit with a gentleness that never rushes and a mercy that never ends. May you feel His presence in the small shifts of your heart, in the moments when you breathe easier, in the moments when you soften, in the moments when you finally let go of what was never yours to hold. May He bring light to the parts of you that feel forgotten, strength to the parts that feel tired, and hope to the parts that have been waiting in silence. And may you trust His truth as you continue your journey. Even the healing you cannot see is holy in God's eyes. He is restoring you in the quiet ways, in the ways that are hidden, in the ways that are already unfolding beneath the surface of your life. May His peace surround you, His love steady you, and His hand guide you as He brings every unseen recovery into the light. I want to thank you for joining me on Faith Between the Lines, and I hope I met you right where you are. Your comments are always welcome on this show. Your being here matters. And may you always remember, you are never walking alone.